The real-life horror story that happened inside the Pan family's home shattered the serenity of their normally quiet, upscale neighborhood.
In many ways, this is an immigrant's tale.
It's the beginning of what Detective Bill Curtis describes as 18 minutes of sheer terror.
Hey guys, welcome to my channel, and today we are doing another true crime case. So today we're going to be talking about, if you haven't seen from the title, in the intro, we are talking about Jennifer's case, Jennifer Pan. So once again, I do have information written down, so if I am looking down or anywhere but the camera, my apologies. I just want to make sure, I always get the information correct when I talk about true crime cases. This was actually recommended by one of you guys, so thank you. Definitely love doing stories that my followers do suggest. But yeah, before we get on in the video with the story, one, this is going to be a lengthy video. We're going to be covering everything that has been going on with the Jennifer case. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. So yeah, let's get on with the video. Jennifer was born in Barkingham, Ontario, with her older brother, where they were both raised there in a middle-class household. Jennifer's parents were born in Vietnam. They go by Bic and Han, and their parenting method was really strict. Their obligation was that their kids had to bring achievement into the household, and that was the only way of living, and they felt like that was the obligation. Like, my kids have to have success and have to succeed, and that is the only proper way of living. That is exactly how they saw it, but that's kind of how a lot of Asian households are. I don't know if that still is the standard thing, but a lot of Asian households are very strict about, their kids achieving things and their kids bringing, excellent grades, and very hard on, bringing the success to the family. But that also plays a really big part later on in the story of how the stress of success and obligations to bring achievement later on causes a lot of waves. Jennifer at first had successfully achieved that through her figure skating. She used to be a figure skater back when she was 13 years old. She was really good at it. She was basically a pro. She was actually set to go to the Winter Olympics, but sadly she could no longer compete because she injured her knee, which that is obviously a big muscle and a part of your body for figure skating, that she could no longer compete. So now she was like, crap, like, I had everything figured out with this figure skating. I'm really athletic. This was something that was making my parents happy with me because she was not good at school. She was great with athletics. She was, she would blow people away with her athletic ability. And now she had to make her parents happy with her grades. And the thing is with Jennifer, like I said, she was not good at school. She knew that this was going to cause some problems in her household. She was giving an average of C- when her parents expected nothing but straight A's all across the board with tests, report cards, and everything else included. But instead of Jennifer, communicating with her parents about how much she struggled in school, this is when Jennifer started to live a double life. Jennifer began lying about her grades, lying about her tests, lying about everything. So she started to fake her grades. She started to fake her grades on any test that she had in high school. She also faked her high school diploma, faked a university acceptance letter saying that she was going to study in the field of pharmacology. And her parents were like, my daughter is doing amazing. First she was a figure skater. Now, she can't do that no more, but now she's set to have a career in the medical field, which they thought was happening, but in reality, Jennifer was doing the complete opposite of that. In reality, Jennifer was a high school dropout living with her drug dealer boyfriend, who they had been dating for roughly almost 8 years together. Her parents actually later on found out in the year of 2010 and gave Jennifer an ultimatum saying, you're either going to come back home, live with us, go back to school. We're going to be really strict because that's how they were. She wasn't allowed to literally do anything. You're going to be really strict on you can't do anything but go to school, come home, go to work, and that's it. Or, you could do whatever you want, but this family will no longer talk to you, no longer provide you with money or anything, and you will be disowned by us. That was the ultimatum. Either live with us under the strict environment, and you literally can't do anything besides school and work, or you could do whatever you want just like you're doing now, but we will no longer talk to you or financially support you, and you're disowned from the family forever. Jennifer decided that neither one of those options were something that she wanted to do, so Jennifer actually created a third option that her parents did not know anything about. Jennifer and her boyfriend came with this idea of, how about instead of me being stuck in this house where I can't do anything I want, where I don't have the freedom, where I have to go to school, which I'm not good at, and I have to work all the time, and I can't see my boyfriend, I can't live my life, I can't have the freedom, how about instead we stage a robbery gone wrong? She had her boyfriend create a fake mock robbery with 3 of his friends. So basically they were given 2 clear instructions. They were going to invade the house like a robbery and then kill her parents. Of the robbery that was set in stone was Monday, November 8th at 11 p.m. was their scheduled time to do so. On a neighbor's surveillance camera, which I will insert here. As you saw in the clip, that you could see that Jennifer was with these 3 men and literally unlocked the door and showed them the way in to her home. And in those same 18 minutes, there was a call from the same house, so Jennifer's house, from Jennifer crying that her parents were just shot or that her house was just robbed. But in reality, we all know that Jennifer had a part in this robbery, of course, but she was faking it so, she wouldn't get caught. And she can go about living whatever life she wanted because both her parents were dealt with. Actually, insert the 911 call from Jennifer right here for you guys.
Where are you, ma'am? Please just help me. I don't have my parents. Ma'am, calm down. What? Some people broke into our house to show us all his money.
Her mother was actually shot twice, one in the neck and one in the head, and she was killed immediately. Her father was also shot twice as well. He was shot in the face and in the shoulder, but he actually later on survived, and he was put into a coma when later on transferred to the hospital. Jennifer was also taken to the hospital because right now the police think that Jennifer is just a innocent victim / witness, and that she was also like one of the victims in the robbery, that she was also hurt. So they brought her in to just do like a mental awareness check on her to make sure that she was okay, but they found out that Jennifer was completely fine and they let her be. So Jennifer actually stood by her father's side for 3 hours before the police brought her in for her very first witness statement / interview. So right now I'm going to insert the clip of the Markham Police Station's interview. It's going to be a little lengthy because it's the first one, and you'll see that her story gets kind of mixed a little bit, but she's showing emotions like she had nothing to do with the robbery / murder of her parents.
In the house?
She was in the house. I had gone down the stairs.
Did you hear, so before this is when did you hear your mom for the first time in the house?
When she came home.
So did you physically see your mom?
Yes.
And at that time there was no one strange in the house?
No, she was on the downstairs sofa. She was watching TV when I last saw her.
Between that time that you see her and you leave her on the sofa until you hear the noises, the strange, the voices as you describe them, how long is that?
Maybe a half hour.
A half an hour? Where is it your mom was before here?
She goes dancing every Monday. She goes dancing with a few relatives as well.
What is the first, when you hear this, can you hear them talking? There's the unknown voices.
It's all a mumble.
It's a mumble?
Because I had the TV on, it was just all a mumble.
When's the first time that you actually can hear one of them talking?
When he was upstairs, and I thought he had left the upstairs, because I was frozen in my room for a while.
Yep.
Trying to listen in, but I couldn't hear over my TV, and I didn't want to startle them by turning it off or like diminishing the volume. So I was kind of pressed up against my door for a while trying to hear it. And I thought that all the people upstairs had gone down, so I opened up my door quietly and tried to peer out, and he saw me, and that's when he came. The only thing I can remember was he had dreadlocks.
Did you see the gun?
I only saw the top part of the gun.
What did it look like?
It was black.
Yeah.
And it kind of, not triangular, but it was slightly wider. They sit me right at the bottom of the stairs, like, slightly out not exactly directly at the bottom of the stairwell, but just slightly over a little. The third guy, who I didn't encounter, but he was there, he was like, "Where's your money? Cooperate with us." And then my mom's like, yelling, and "Don't hurt us," and "My money's in my wallet, just please leave my paperwork."
This person, this third guy who you're now describing, do you see him ever? Only as a shadow?
Because there's a wall, a
Okay.
partial wall, and he was like right in that vision over my father, but partially in that vision. And the next thing I can hear are them telling my parents to move to the basement.
Okay.
And I'm asking them, "Why? Where are you going?" And my mom's yelling to me, "I want my daughter. Why can't my daughter come too? I want my daughter."
Who goes down to the basement? Can you see that from where you're
My
sitting?
back is towards the wall.
Do you hear anyone else in the main level where your parents were? Like, you can hear, if people are trucking down the stairs, you hear your parents going down the stairs. Do you hear like 5 sets of footsteps going down there, or can't you hear that?
I was just such a distress. I don't exactly know how many people went down.
After the first interview, Jennifer was brought back in for a second interview because police were like, how was she able to call the police if she was so-called tied up? Because she was tied up, which they will show you in the clip that I'm going to insert. She was tied up, so it's like, how can you get a phone if your arms are tied up and you can't move? Which, does kind of make sense as to what the police are saying, because it's like literally not really possible. So in this next clip that you are going to see the second interview where they actually have her stand up and demonstrate how was she even able to call the police in the first place.
Stand up and turn around. Put this in the side that you believe it was in. Great. Turn around so that you're looking away from me. You're looking exactly like, now here is where the banister is. Put your hands back behind your back, exactly how you remember they were, okay? Now, are you restrained from movement? How far can you move your hands from the banister?
They tied my upper arm
Yes?
around the banister,
Yes?
but my hands were bound together.
So your hands bound together, and this is the arm that's the strings wrapped around against the banister?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now how can you get to the phone, and how do you make the phone call? 911?
Mm-hmm.
And do you talk down like that?
Yes, I'm yelling at the phone like this.
And how can you hear?
I turned the volume on max.
Yes? So that's exactly the way that you're talking to her against the railing.
Vic's funeral was held November 15th, 2010. This is her mother's funeral, and the police were actually secretly watching Jennifer to see how she would react if she had any emotions, basically just how she was acting that day, see her emotions, because they were slowly catching on to the fact that maybe Jennifer did have something to do with this robbery gone wrong. They noticed that during the funeral, Jennifer wasn't showing really any emotions. She was kind of just there. She was just acting like she didn't have any emotions. But they also kept in mind that, everybody grieves differently, so that's kind of playing a factor in this. Everybody grieves differently, so there's definitely a factor to that maybe Jennifer was just grieving differently, even though we all know she obviously had a part in it. But right now, the police do not know for sure if Jennifer had a part in killing her mother and injuring her father. But after the funeral, the police decided to keep Jennifer on a surveillance at all times to see if they can get more information on her. The police later on noticed that her story was not adding up, because if it was a so-called robbery, so when they kind of went over the map of the house and everything that was in plain sight, they had cars there that were expensive cars. In a robbery, you would think that the robbers would take the car and none of their technology was touched, none of the jewelry was touched, none of the hidden money. There's still hidden money in the house. Nothing was touched. Jennifer was not touched at all. And in a robbery, their plan was to murder everybody so there's no witnesses. But if it was that in that case, then how come Jennifer made it out alive and untouched? Also, the police noticed that the robbers didn't have any kind of tool to get inside that house, so it was kind of like they were expecting that door to be wide open, which we saw earlier in the surveillance clip that I showed you guys, that Jennifer opened the door for the robbers. But the police still don't know this yet, but they're slowly adding the puzzle together to figure out what exactly happened that night. 3 days later, when the police started slowly puzzling the evidence together, her father, Han, actually woke up from his coma. Of course, he was severely injured. He had a lot of, fractures in his face because of the bullets and everything. But surprisingly enough, he remembered everything that happened that night. He told the police while the men were in the house, Jennifer was not tied up, and Jennifer was actually talking to the men like they were best friends all along. Jennifer was not tied up at all, and Jennifer was actually walking around the house with them, just roaming around the entire house. And of course, this is the complete opposite of what Jennifer has been telling the police. The police brought her in for a third and final interview. This interview actually lasted 9 hours. They started, pointing the finger at Jennifer, being like, you did this is all you did this for sure. Pointing the finger at her and blaming her and being like, you did this is all your fault, to see how she would react. They didn't know for sure yet still if it was her, but they thought maybe if we act like we know that she did something, she's gonna react and tell us the full-on truth of what really happened. After the 9 hours, Jennifer actually ended up cracking and telling police only like a half-truth and another made-up story. She told the police that she was depressed and she was locked up in the house, like it was house arrest, because she was living in a very strict household, which that part is true. But she was saying that she hired somebody to kill her, not her parents, and that the men got the information wrong and confused, and that they accidentally killed her parents and not her. After Jennifer confesses that, the police ended up arresting Jennifer right on the spot, and actually the police found old phone records of hours-long conversations from the day of the robbery/murder that Jennifer was talking to the men this entire time, planning out exactly what they were going to do in Jennifer's family's house. They ended up arresting everyone, including the boyfriend, the 3 men involved, and Jennifer, and actually a trial started to begin. The trial actually lasted 10 months long. More than 50 witnesses up there testifying against Jennifer. Jennifer ended up being on the stand in the jury for 7 days long. Jennifer actually and the rest of the group of people involved all ended up getting a life sentence with a small possibility of parole in 25 years. That doesn't mean that they're gonna for sure get parole, but they can request it and stand in front of the judge and see if they'll get it, but it is not 100% for sure going to happen. So right now at this very moment they are still in jail. They have not been out, but I feel like this case was a very not talked about case at all. You kind of really have to do some digging to know more about this Jennifer case, but it kind of shows that a lot can happen under a strict family. It does not excuse the behavior of Jennifer. In the court, they actually try to argue the fact that Jennifer was abused being in a strict environment, that she eventually cracked and could no longer take no more, and that is why she set up the murder of her parents, even though her dad did survive, like we did talk about. But that is all we have for Jennifer's solution. That's what we're going to call this video, Jennifer's solution/case. If you guys like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment, and you guys can always send me cases down below in the comment section below, and I always check them out. So like I said, like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video.